Did you know that the movie Se7en from 1995 was so dark and so violent that the studio executives didn't even want to release it? They thought audiences would hate it. They thought it was too much. They thought it would offend people and disgust them. But the director David Fincher believed in his vision so much that he fought for every single dark moment. The studio was terrified. This was one of the darkest crime thrillers ever made. It had gruesome murders. It had depressing themes. It had an ending that nobody expected. But the director refused to soften it or lighten it, and he was right to fight for it. Se7en became one of the most influential thriller films ever made. It changed how crime movies could look and feel. It proved that audiences would watch something truly dark if the storytelling was brilliant. It inspired countless movies that came after it. But making it was a battle between art and commercialism. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about Se7en. Number 20. Brad Pitt almost didn't take the role because the script was incomplete. Brad Pitt was asked to star in Se7 before the script was even finished. The studio and director wanted Brad because he was famous and he could draw audiences. But Brad read what existed of the script, and it was incomplete. He didn't know how the story ended. He didn't know what his character would do. He didn't know if the movie would be good. Most actors need to read the complete script before committing. But this time, Brad had to decide without knowing the whole story. He had to trust the director and the studio that the finished script would be good. He had to take a risk on something incomplete. Brad said yes anyway. It was a gamble, but it paid off. If Brad had said no, the movie might have gone to a different actor. It might have felt completely different. Sometimes the best decisions come from taking risks on incomplete information. Brad's choice to say yes to an unfinished script led to one of the most important movies of his career. Number 19. The ending was kept secret from everyone, except the director and Brad Pitt. The ending of Se7 is one of the most shocking moments in cinema history, but it was kept completely secret during filming. The other actors didn't know how the movie ended. The crew didn't know. The studio executives barely knew. Only the director David Fincher and Brad Pitt knew the true ending. Why? Because if it leaked, the whole movie would be spoiled. The twist ending is so powerful that if audiences knew it beforehand, the impact would be destroyed. So the director locked away the ending. He kept it in his mind and Brad Pitt's mind. When it came time to film the ending, other actors had to act without knowing what would happen next. They had to react with genuine surprise because they genuinely didn't know. When you watch the ending and see the shock on the characters' faces, some of that shock is real because the actors actually were shocked while filming it. That wasn't acting. It was real confusion followed by real understanding. The secrecy protected the artistic power of the film. Number 18. The gruesome crime scenes were based on real serial killer cases. The 7 deadly sins murders in the movie are inspired by real serial killer cases. The filmmakers researched actual murders committed by actual serial killers. The deaths in the movie are artistic interpretations of real crimes. They're not exactly like the real crimes, but they're based on real patterns of how serial killers think and operate. Researching real murders was depressing and disturbing. The crew had to read about terrible things. They had to look at crime scene photos. They had to understand the psychology of killers. This research made the movie more realistic and more authentic. The murders in Se7 feel real because they're based on real criminal behavior. But researching real crime came at an emotional cost. The filmmakers had to immerse themselves in darkness to create darkness. What looked like fiction on screen was actually grounded in terrible reality. Number 17. Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. Had almost no chemistry at first. Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt play detective partners. Their chemistry is crucial to the movie. But when they first started filming together, they didn't have much chemistry. They didn't know each other. They had different acting styles. They approached scenes differently. For the first few weeks of filming, there were awkward moments. The director had to help them find a way to work together. Over time, they developed a rhythm. They started to understand each other's approach. They learned how to play off each other. By the end of filming, they had developed a real chemistry. But it wasn't instant. It was built through work and time and understanding. What looked like natural chemistry on screen was actually the result of two actors figuring out how to work together. That chemistry that audiences felt was earned through difficult collaboration. Number 16, the rain in the movie, was not fake. The movie takes place in a perpetually rainy city. The rain creates the dark, depressing atmosphere. But here's the weird part. Most of the rain was real. The filmmakers actually filmed during rainy weather. They didn't use movie rain machines or special effects. They used actual rain from actual storms. Filming in real rain is harder and more difficult than using fake rain. The equipment can get damaged. The actors are actually wet and cold. The cameras get wet. But the director wanted real rain because real rain looks and feels different from fake rain. Real rain has a certain texture and weight that movie rain can't capture. By using real rain, the director made the movie look authentic. The depression and darkness felt real because the environment was actually dark and wet. What looked like a carefully controlled movie effect was actually the result of filming in actual harsh weather conditions. Number 15. David Fincher wanted to use more violence. But the studio said no. David Fincher is known for being very dark and very violent in his filmmaking. With Se7en, he wanted to make it even darker and even more violent. He wanted some scenes to be even more graphic. He wanted some murders to be even more gruesome. But the studio said no. The studio was already worried the movie was too dark. They were already worried about violence. They told the director he had to pull back. He had to make compromises. The movie you see is actually Fincher's vision with some restraint forced upon it by the studio. If Fincher had gotten his way completely, it might have been even darker. But sometimes constraints push artists to be more creative. By having to work within limits, Fincher had to be smarter about how he showed darkness. He had to suggest violence instead of always showing it. What looked like Fincher's complete vision was actually his vision with studio limitations built into it. Number 14. The opening credit sequence was inspired by serial killer behavior. The opening credits of Se7en are unlike any opening credits ever filmed. They show close-up shots of disturbing images and disturbing art. They're unsettling and weird and wrong. The director was inspired by research into serial killers. Serial killers often keep scrapbooks and collect images and artifacts. They arrange objects in obsessive ways. They create art from their dark thoughts. The opening credits were meant to feel like we're inside the mind of a serial killer. We're seeing his scrapbook. We're seeing his obsessions. The opening credits aren't just pretty images. They're a window into madness. The opening credits were incredibly important to the director. He spent a lot of time and money creating them. They set the tone for the entire movie. What looked like stylish opening credits was actually a deep exploration of criminal psychology. Number 13. The killer's apartment was designed to feel like a horror movie set. The killer's apartment is one of the most disturbing places ever filmed. Every corner is filled with darkness and twisted art. Every wall tells a story about the killer's mind. The production designer had to create an environment that was disturbing without being randomly messy. Everything in the apartment had to mean something. Every object was placed with intention. The apartment had to look like the home of someone insane. It had to make audiences feel uncomfortable just looking at it. The production designer studied real serial killers' homes. He looked at crime scene photos. He understood that serial killers often live in environments that reflect their twisted thinking. By designing the apartment this way, the production designer helped audiences understand the killer's mind without dialogue. What looked like random creepy decoration was actually carefully designed psychology expressed through environment. Number 12. The studio wanted a happy ending, but Fincher refused. The studio executives wanted the movie to end differently. They wanted a more traditional ending. They wanted good to triumph and evil to be defeated. They wanted audiences to leave the theater feeling hopeful, but David Fincher had a different vision. He wanted an ending that was dark and devastating. He wanted an ending that would haunt audiences. He wanted an ending that would stay with people after they left the theater. Fincher refused to change it. The studio pushed back. There was conflict, but Fincher stood firm. He believed that changing the ending would betray everything the movie was about. In the end, the studio accepted his vision. Fincher got his dark ending, and that ending is one of the reasons the movie is so powerful and so remembered. Sometimes artists have to fight for their vision. Sometimes they have to say no to the studio. Sometimes they have to believe that their dark idea is better than the commercial idea. Number 11. The budget kept growing because Fincher kept reshooting scenes. David Fincher is known for being a perfectionist. He wants every frame to be exactly right. With Se7en, he would shoot a scene many times, sometimes 20 or 30 times. He would try different camera angles. He would try different lighting. He would try different performances from the actors. Each take had to be checked carefully. Sometimes an entire scene would be reshot because one element wasn't quite right. The crew got frustrated sometimes. The actors were tired, but Fincher kept pushing for perfection. This constant reshooting made the budget grow bigger and bigger. The studio was nervous about the growing costs, but the final product was worth it. Every frame of the movie is carefully crafted. Every shot has been thought about and reconsidered. What looked like a smooth production was actually a director obsessing over every single detail. Number 10. The 7 deadly sins were carefully researched and symbolized. The movie is built around the 7 deadly sins from religious tradition: gluttony, greed, sloth, lust, pride, wrath, and envy. Each murder represents one of these sins. But the filmmakers didn't just pick these sins randomly. They researched the sins. They studied what these sins mean. They studied how these sins corrupt people. They studied real examples of each sin. Then they created murders that would represent each sin in a powerful way. By building the movie around these 7 sins, the filmmakers were making a statement about morality and human nature. They were suggesting that these sins are the core of human evil. What looked like a clever structure was actually a deep exploration of ethics and morality. The murders aren't just random killings. They're a philosophical argument about human nature expressed through violence. Number 9. Brad Pitt's character was intentionally annoying to modern audiences. Brad Pitt plays a detective who is enthusiastic and energetic. Some audiences found him annoying. They thought he was too cheerful for such a dark movie. They thought he talked too much. They thought he smiled too much. But this was intentional. The director wanted Brad's character to be the voice of youth and optimism in a world of darkness. Brad's character represents hope and energy. The older detective, played by Morgan Freeman, represents experience and darkness. By putting these two together, the director created a contrast. Brad's annoyingness isn't a mistake. It's a choice. It's meant to show how naive optimism looks when confronted with real darkness. What looked like bad character development was actually a sophisticated choice about how to show the clash between youth and experience. Number 8. The city in Se7en doesn't exist. The movie takes place in an unnamed city. It's not supposed to be New York or Los Angeles or any specific city. It's supposed to be a generic American city. By not naming the city, the director made the story universal. It could be any city. It could be your city. The darkness exists everywhere, not just in one specific place. The production design reflects this. The city looks gray and depressing and generic. The streets could be any streets. The buildings could be any buildings. If the director had chosen a specific real city, the story would feel more specific. But by making it generic, the story feels more universal. Every audience member can imagine the story happening in their own city. What looked like a vague setting was actually a deliberate choice to make the story feel universal and timeless. Number 7. The screenplay was rewritten. Multiple times before filming, the original screenplay for Se7en went through many revisions. Different writers contributed ideas. The structure changed, the murders changed, the ending was rewritten. The characters developed over many drafts. By the time filming started, the screenplay had been revised dozens of times. The director and producers kept working on it because they wanted to get it right. The dialogue had to be perfect. The structure had to be perfect. The pacing had to be perfect. What looked like a finished script at the beginning of filming was actually still being refined during pre-production. Some scenes were rewritten just days before filming. Some dialogue was changed during rehearsals. The screenplay that audiences see in the finished movie is the result of countless revisions and refinements. Number 6. The killing of innocent people was controversial. In the movie, innocent people die because of the killer's plans. These deaths are shocking and disturbing. Some audiences were offended by these deaths. They thought killing innocent people was too much. They thought it crossed a line. But the director believed these deaths were necessary to the story. The killer doesn't distinguish between guilty and innocent people. He kills for his own reasons. By killing innocent people, the movie was saying something about how evil doesn't care about morality or innocence. The deaths of innocent people were meant to be shocking. They were meant to make audiences uncomfortable. They were meant to show that evil is random and doesn't follow rules. What looked like gratuitous violence was actually a statement about the nature of evil. But it's still controversial. Some audiences still think it's too much. Number 5. The detective's apartment tells a story about his mental state. The older detective lives in a cluttered, messy apartment filled with books and papers and files about his cases. His apartment looks like his mind, chaotic and filled with darkness. The production designer designed the apartment to reflect the detective's psychology. The apartment is the opposite of the killer's apartment. The killer's apartment is obsessively organized. The detective's apartment is chaotically disorganized. But both apartments tell us about the minds of the people living in them. By designing these two contrasting spaces, the production designer helped audiences understand who these characters are without dialogue. What looked like messy set decoration was actually a sophisticated form of character development expressed through environment. Number 4. The ending was filmed in secrecy. The ending was filmed on a closed set with only essential crew members present. No one who didn't absolutely have to be there was allowed on set. The director wanted to keep the ending completely secret. He didn't want any leaks. He didn't want anyone accidentally spoiling it. The actors had to sign strict confidentiality agreements. If they talked about the ending, they could face legal consequences. The set was locked down. The footage was secured. Security was tight. By keeping the ending so secret, the director protected the power of the twist. When audiences watched the ending, they would be experiencing it for the first time with no knowledge of what would happen. The ending would hit them with full force because they had no warning. What looked like paranoid secrecy was actually a brilliant strategy to protect artistic impact. Number 3. The city rain was meant to reflect the detective's internal depression. The rain in the movie is constant. It rains almost every scene. The entire city is wet and dark. But the rain isn't just weather. It's a symbol. The rain represents the detective's internal emotional state. He's drowning in darkness. He's drowning in depression. The rain shows that he can't escape. The depression surrounds him. The rain is inescapable, just like the detective's depression is inescapable. By making the entire city rainy, the director was making the city a reflection of the detective's mind. What looked like a simple setting choice was actually a sophisticated use of environment to express internal psychology. Number 2. The killer's motivation was left ambiguous on purpose. The audience never fully understands why the killer commits the murders. His psychology is mysterious. His background is mysterious. His motivations are mysterious. Some audiences wanted more explanation. They wanted to understand the killer's mind. They wanted a clear backstory, but the director intentionally left it ambiguous. By not explaining the killer, the director made him more frightening. The killer becomes a force of nature, evil that can't be understood or explained. This makes the killer scarier than if we understood him completely. What looked like incomplete character development was actually a brilliant storytelling choice about how to make evil seem incomprehensible and terrifying. Number 1. The movie changed crime. Thrillers forever. When Se7en came out in 1995, it changed what crime thrillers could be. It proved that audiences would watch something truly dark and depressing if the story was brilliant. Before this, many crime movies had happy endings where justice won. But Se7en showed that you could make a crime movie with a devastating ending. It showed that you could make a crime movie that leaves audiences disturbed rather than satisfied. The movie became hugely influential. Every dark thriller made after this was influenced by Se7en. Directors studied the cinematography. Directors studied the structure. Directors studied the tone. The movie set a new standard for what a crime thriller could look like and feel like. It opened doors for directors who wanted to make darker, more artistic films. One movie changed the entire direction of crime cinema forever. The template that Se7en created is still being used today. Bonus fact: the cinematography, how darkness can be beautiful. The cinematographer on Se7en faced an incredible challenge. He had to make darkness and depression and evil look beautiful on screen. He had to make audiences want to watch something that was making them uncomfortable. He did this through careful lighting and careful color choices. The shadows are as important as the light. The darkness is as important as the brightness. By treating darkness as something beautiful, the cinematographer created images that are disturbing but also visually stunning. The movie is depressing to watch, but it's also beautiful to watch. That combination, depression and beauty mixed together, is what makes Se7en so powerful. What looked like simple dark cinematography was actually a sophisticated understanding of how to use light and shadow and color to create meaning. The past lives in art. Se7en is more than just a crime thriller about a serial killer. It's a meditation on darkness and morality and human nature. It's about how evil exists in the world and how people cope with knowing that evil exists. It's about how good people can be destroyed by confronting evil. It's about how systems of morality and religion struggle against chaos and randomness. It's about the price of seeing too much. Darkness. When Se7en came out, it shocked audiences. It disturbed them. It made them think about evil and morality in ways they hadn't thought before. It made them question whether good can triumph over evil. It made them uncomfortable. That discomfort is the point. Great cinema sometimes needs to make us uncomfortable. Great cinema sometimes needs to show us darkness so that we understand what we're struggling against. If you enjoyed these stories and learned something new about this classic movie, please subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth, and we'll keep uncovering them, one story at a time. Thank you for watching.